Teachers of Reddit, what was the best lateness excuse you ever heard? I knew a guy in high school who came in 40 minutes late after lunch and said sorry I was at Subway and they got my sandwich wrong. There's one Subway in our school town and it was about 30 minutes away at the other end of the high street. He was already 10 minutes late by the time he started walking back. Not teacher, but student. Kid that was always fucking around rolled into class 30 minutes late totally disheveled. With wild eyes he claimed he fell down the stairs and blacked out. Teacher didn't believe him, but that fucker was covered in dust all over his back so who knows. I used this one as a kid. My dad ate my homework. In 7th grade for French class, I had to make a homemade French dish. I chose croissants as I was 12 and anything else would have been way too complicated. I made them with my mom after dinner and sometime after I went to bed, my dad ate like 6 of them, which meant I didn't have enough for the class. So on the way to school, I had to stop at Dunkin' Donuts and replace the ones my dad ate. Me walks in an hour late when there was already a 90-minute delay for snow. Teacher, how can you be this late? Me, well you see, my garage door was literally frozen shut this morning, so I just kinda went back to sleep to give it time to thaw. Teacher, well alright then. I remember this from 11th grade. Our history class was right after lunch. The class started with a quiz, so everyone was quiet. This big guy comes in like 15 minutes late. He goes over to our male teacher and whispers something in his ear. The teacher repeats it, but a little bit louder, so that it was audible. And the teacher says, "The cafeteria lady sold you an all-bread stromboli." Yes, the cafeteria lady had indeed sold him an all-bread stromboli with no meat and cheese in it. So he had to go back and ask for another one, sit down and eat it, which was why he was late for class. I'm sorry I was late. I was running late. My best excuse, I have poor time management. Teacher said he was ready to yell at me for any excuse I had, but he had nothing for that. Got let off the hook. Not a teacher, but once my classmate wrote my pigeon laid an egg as an excuse on his latter combing slip. I had a late student because he was getting a fine for tossing his cigarette, but on the ground right outside school. I teach adults. Not a teacher. There was a kid who was late pretty much every day. One day I was late, and when I walked in I said to the teacher, "Sorry, I'm being Mike for Halloween." So she let me slide. That being said, I was like 3 minutes late. I doubt it was amusing enough to let me slide if I was 15 minutes late. Not a teacher, and this story might not fit here, but I feel it needs to be told. My HS only had 4 classes a day, so they were very long. We had this senior only economics class that was kind of a joke. Getting closer to graduation we all got senioritis pretty bad, but this one guy he'll show up for class, but then leave for 45 plus minutes. We pretty sure he was smoking weed and having sex with his GF in his car. Anyway, one day he comes back to class with a Costco hot dog and soda. There was one nearby and just casually strolled into class. The teacher, who was a good well-liked teacher, sort of wigged out on him, but seemed like she was hiding that she was impressed. She gives him the grade school scolding of "if you didn't bring enough for everyone ECT." He kind of confidently acknowledged her and took his seat. Next day, he disappeared again as usual. 20-ish minutes later he and his GF, who was not in the class, walk in with like 35 Costco hot dogs, condiments, and sodas for the whole class. The teacher just laughed and let it happen. Not a teacher, but this is one of my favorite stories to tell from freshman year of high school. Some kid showed up really late to class and told our teacher that he was in the bathroom and the trash can was on fire. We all sat there in disbelief and we all went to look out the door to see a bunch of smoke in the hallway. Then we see a security guard run out of the bathroom with a smoking trash can in his hands. Turns out some genius was smoking in the bathroom and threw their cigarette in a trash can full of flammable objects. Still was a pretty funny situation though. I was in college and had this absolute dick of a professor for a nascent lit. For example, first class and he goes off on me for walking in with a hat on. My response was, well, no one else minds. How was I possibly supposed to know I shouldn't wear it unless I'm psychic? I haven't been in this class before. My stepmom died that semester. I missed a week of class. Get back to class, and he goes off again about how disrespectful people are. Asks me why I missed class. My stepmom died last Monday. Dead. Silent. Room. Guy asked me to bring in a copy of her obit for proof. He was an absolute sack of shit garbage person. My old history told us a story about a high school he once worked at. He claimed that if you were tardy you would have to walk up to a 90-year-old woman and give her your excuse. Based on your reason she would then decide whether your tardiness was excused or unexcused. She would circle either on a piece of paper that you would have to then hand to whatever teacher's class you were late for. One day said teacher gets a piece of paper from one of his students with my sister is a beach written on the slip. To his surprise the woman had marked it down as an excused tardiness. After reading this, he got so angry that he yelled, "I swear to God you could tell this woman anything and she would mark it down as excused." This being in front of a bunch of dumb high school students. He had no idea that he had started a competition to see who could get the most ridiculous reason for tardiness marked as excused. He said he got some along the lines of "I was abducted by aliens." Sorry, cannot remember any of the examples. But after days of this going on he decided to put a stop to it. As he's wrapping up his discussion on stopping this competition, a student is banging on his classroom door with a slip in his hand yelling, "I've got it. I've got the winner." He allowed the student inside and takes the slip. Reason: "I was gang raped by a group of gorillas." Excused. In my class back in university, one of my colleagues came to class 1 hour late. The professor said something like, "So what's your excuse? Did your building explode or something?" Turns out her building actually collapsed. 15 stories high, killing multiple people, and she lost everything. "Cows were out" was a common one growing up. I once used "alpacas" in my yard though. Neighbors raised them, and they had a fetishized for our garden. I remember a guy, when I was in the 10th grade, would be late every time there was an election because he was over 18 and could vote. But as an adult I've heard so many lame excuses from people who work for me. To be honest, I'm more willing to be forgiving if it isn't a pattern and if they are sincere when they tell me that there is no excuse. I'm a tar, and last semester a student emailed me saying he would be late to class because he got bit by a squirrel. There was also a different student who came to class with a baby turtle he found one day, on time though. It's possible I was teaching a class full of misfit Disney princesses. Had to finish my blunt first, followed by in-school suspension. Student walked in and looked a bit shaken. She told the class she had been hit by a car in a calm voice. English was her second language. Some people were confused and didn't think she had been a pedestrian struck by a vehicle. Not 5 minutes later, a police officer, paramedics, and the school nurse come in and usher her away. Apparently she got hit, got up off the ground, and sprinted into school. She had a minor concussion and we didn't see her for a week or so. One of my kids was absent for a couple of days because he said he missed the bus because he woke up late and his parents were already at work, so he sat outside of his locked apartment complex without a key to get back in. It was snowing. This kid doesn't have heavy warm winter clothes. That was my first year of teaching in an inner city public school. The heartbreak doesn't stop. I had another kid who frequently didn't show up because my mom is lazy. She doesn't feel like getting up in time. So I sleep late and miss the bus, so we stay home. I've also gotten worse ones, like it turned out the kid had missed school or been late because he was being punished by getting locked in the basement with the lights off, or another student who was late because her abusive dad, abusive to mom, was trying to make up to the kids by taking them to buy toys instead of driving them to school. We have a door-to-door bus service for each kid, but sometimes the bus misses kids, especially at the beginning of the year. And because parents work early and might lock the door after the kid is already sitting outside waiting, the kid just sits around all day, alone. I teach at a university, but this was from my high school years. My sister had just gotten her learner's permit that week and was driving to school for the first time, with me riding shotgun, required licensed 18-year family member, etc. We came up to a very sharp intersection, something like a 135-degree hairpin turn, and the light turned yellow. My sister asked me what to do, and I said to stop for it, not liking the odds of a complete noob driver trying to do that turn at speed with me on the outside. She stopped quickly. The Mercedes behind us didn't. Everyone except the Mercedes was okay, but it snarled traffic up pretty badly for a while. I drove the rest of the way to school. The crash totaled the Mercedes, but just dented the back cargo door in the Blazer we were in, and waited in line as student after student checked in late at the office with there was an accident on the way to school. Our excuse was we were the accident on the way to school. Oh my time to shine for once. Last year I had an early class with very unmotivated students. So many of them were late that instead of letting them enter quietly, the new rule was tell me your excuse, and if it's reasonable I'll let you in. Never refused someone. It was just to reduce the problem. So this one time student arrived like 40 minutes late and pulls me aside, and then he says I'm not gonna lie, I was home ready to leave, and then my girlfriend asked me to come by her place after class, so I had to shave before leaving. Me, to shave? Him, staring awkwardly below his waist, well you know, to keep it clean down there. I burst out laughing and let him enter. While my dad was teaching one day a student came in at 10:30 instead of 8:45 when school started. When my dad asked why the student was so late they replied the liquor store didn't open until 10. My dad teaches 10-year-olds, so this excuse made almost no sense until my dad looked over to his desk and saw the big bottle of Baileys sitting there with a bow on it. The student's parent was a family friend and wanted to give my dad a gift. In the 3rd grade I had to give a presentation in social studies class. We got to read our presentations off of a piece of paper. My dog ate half of that paper the morning I was supposed to deliver said presentation. I was hysterical because I didn't think my teacher would believe the my dog ate my homework excuse. My dad wrote a note for my teacher, please excuse Xmin if does her dog really did eat her homework.